Before we begin, I want to know exactly where you are right now. Are you listening from your car on a long drive? On the sofa late at night? Waiting somewhere? Pause this. Drop a comment right now and tell me your city or country and what time it is. Let's see how far this story travels. And if you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or pushed aside, hit that like button. It tells YouTube this story needs to be heard. Let's begin. The silence in this apartment is different now. It's not the hollow, aching silence that followed Robert's death, the kind that pressed on my eardrums and made the walls feel like they were closing in. This silence is full. It's the quiet of a space that is wholly, completely mine. I run a hand over the cool, smooth marble of the kitchen island, watching the morning sun paint the Seattle skyline in strokes of gold and rose. From the 42nd floor, the world looks orderly, manageable. A far cry from the stained ceiling of that motel room where I used to count the cracks like a prisoner marking days on a wall. It's been 6 months since they stood in my doorway, my son Ryan and his wife Brooke, their faces a mixture of shock, greed, and a dawning, horrifying understanding. 6 months since the game board flipped. I didn't just win, I rebuilt the entire game. Yet, here in this beautiful, silent space, the ghost of the woman I was still sometimes whispers. The one who believed sacrifice was a currency that would never depreciate. The one who learned, in the most brutal way, that to some people, you are only as valuable as your utility. It all started to unravel on a Tuesday. Isn't it always a Tuesday? The day feels ordinary, lulling you into a false sense of continuity. Robert had been gone for a year. The grief had softened from a sharp, stabbing agony to a dull, constant ache, a phantom limb I'd learned to navigate around. Ryan and Brooke still came for Sunday dinners then, though the visits felt increasingly perfunctory. Brooke would chatter about her interior design clients, her words painting pictures of minimalist lofts and bold accent walls, while her eyes would subtly critique my floral curtains, the well-worn comfort of Robert's armchair. Ryan would talk about a big project at his construction firm, his shoulders already carrying a weight of ambition I didn't recognize. That Tuesday, they arrived unannounced. Brooke wasn't in her usual sleek athleisure wear. She wore a crimson dress that seemed to slash through the muted tones of my living room, her blonde hair a perfect, sharp bob. Ryan held a manila folder, not a bottle of wine or a dessert. My heart, foolish thing that it was, leapt for a second. A surprise visit. Maybe they wanted to take me to lunch. "Mom, we need to talk," Ryan said, bypassing a hug, his voice all business. He didn't meet my eyes. The conversation that followed wasn't a conversation. It was an eviction notice delivered without a trace of judicial empathy. Brooke was pregnant. They needed more space. This house, the one Robert and I had scraped and saved for, filled with 45 years of memories, of birthday parties and Christmas mornings and quiet evenings, was too big for me. It was impractical. "What are you saying?" I heard myself ask, my voice thin and reedy, a stranger's voice. Brooke's smile was a thin, pitying line. "It means you have to move out, Lori. We're moving in here. You can find a nice little apartment, something more suitable for one person." The room tilted. "But this is my house. I lived here with your father. Our whole life is here." Ryan's face hardened, a mask slipping into place. "Memories don't pay the bills, Mom. And legally, it's my house too. Dad added me to the deed." The air left my lungs. Robert, ever the planner, ever wanting to make things easy for Ryan later. He never imagined later would mean his wife standing homeless before their son. I begged. I, who had never asked for anything, begged. Tears streamed down my face, hot and shameful. "Please, don't do this to me. I'm your mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything." Brooke actually laughed. A light, tinkling sound that froze the blood in my veins. "Oh, Lori, come on. Stop playing the victim. You've been dependent your whole life." Robert knew it. He just didn't have the heart to say it. Each word was a needle driven under my fingernails. To dismiss my life's work, to slander Robert's quiet, steadfast love, it was a violence I hadn't known existed. "You have 1 week to pack," Ryan said, finally looking at me, and in his eyes I saw not malice, but a chilling indifference. That was worse. "After that, we'll change the locks." 1 week. 45 years condensed into 1 week. Where was I supposed to go? My small widow's pension from Robert's job wouldn't cover a decent rental. I stammered this, my humiliation complete. Brooke's hand went to her still flat stomach, a possessive, protective gesture. That's not our problem. The baby needs a stable, secure home. They left then. I listened to the echo of the door closing, a final, definitive sound. I didn't move from the spot where I stood, in the center of the living room rug Robert had brought back from Turkey. Then my legs gave way and I collapsed, my body folding onto the wool patterns we'd chosen together. I lay there as the afternoon light faded, the silence of the house screaming at me. Every sacrifice, every night spent soothing a feverish child, every extra shift I worked as a bookkeeper to help with Ryan's college books, every time I bit my tongue, smoothed over a disagreement, put my own desires last. It all rose up in a wave so bitter I could taste it. I had built my entire identity on being the cornerstone of this family, and they had removed me with the casual ease of knocking down a temporary wall. The following days were a blur of numb agony. Packing was an archaeological dig through my own life, each artifact a fresh wound. Robert's favorite coffee mug. Ryan's childhood drawings, faded and curled at the edges. Our wedding album, the pages sticking together slightly. I packed with trembling hands, my vision blurred by a constant film of tears. 45 years fit into 6 cardboard boxes. It was a shocking, devastating reduction. Photographs, my mother's china, a few dresses that smelled of mothballs and regret, cookbooks stained with splatters and notes in the margins. That was it. That was Lori. On the day I left, they didn't come. The silence was absolute. I placed the keys on the kitchen table, the same table where I'd served thousands of meals, and wrote on a notepad, "Be happy." The irony was so savage it almost made me smile. I called a taxi. The driver, a man with kind eyes, helped me load the boxes into the trunk without comment. He didn't ask why a woman my age was moving into the Rainier Vista Motel. The motel was a monument to despair. Nestled in a part of the city that seemed perpetually gray, it smelled of damp carpet, stale cigarettes, and defeat. My room was a cell with a window facing a brick wall and a dumpster. The bed groaned a protest every time I shifted. At night, I could hear arguments through the paper-thin walls, the blare of sirens, the relentless bass of someone's music. This was my reward. This was where useless women were deposited. The first week, I existed in a state of catatonic shock. I didn't eat. I lay on that groaning bed, staring at a water stain on the ceiling that looked like a twisted face, and I replayed every moment of my life, searching for the flaw, the crack where I had failed. When did my sweet boy, the one who used to crawl into my lap with a storybook, become this cold stranger? Had I loved him too much? Not enough? Was Brooke the catalyst, or had this cruelty been lying dormant in him, waiting for her permission to emerge? I called. Of course I called. The phone would ring, and then his cheerful voicemail would kick in. "Hi, you've reached Ryan." The sound of his voice, so normal, so everyday, would shatter me anew. "Ryan, it's Mom," I'd whisper after the beep, trying to sound normal, not pathetic. Just checking in. Call me when you can." He never did. I texted Brooke, swallowing every ounce of pride. "Brooke, I hope you're feeling okay. Thinking of you and the baby. Please let me know how your appointment went." Hours later, a single line would appear, "We're fine. Please stop." The humiliation was a physical weight. I began venturing out during the day, walking the streets, looking for work. "Do you have any cleaning positions? Elder companion roles?" At 66, I was met with polite, dismissive smiles. "I'm sorry, we're looking for someone younger. It's quite physical. Try a temp agency." I was a ghost, fading from the world's view. My money dwindled. I bought the cheapest, saddest food, day-old bread, cans of off-brand soup, bananas on the verge of rotting. I ate 1 meal a day to make the small stack of bills last. I lost weight. My clothes, already dated, hung off me. When I caught my reflection in a shop window, I saw a gaunt, elderly woman with haunted eyes. I looked like someone who had been discarded. Because I had been. The lowest point came one night. A wave of grief for Robert, for my lost home, for the brutal unfairness of it all, hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Sobs racked my body, silent at first, then escaping as ragged gasps. From the other side of the wall, a woman's voice, sharp and irritated, yelled, "Shut up, you old crybaby. Some of us are trying to sleep." I froze. In that moment, the last shred of my dignity dissolved. Even in this place, among the lost and broken, I was a nuisance. A crybaby. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just lay there, hollowed out, a vessel filled only with shame. Weeks bled into months. Survival became a grim routine. And then, one afternoon, sorting through my boxes in a futile attempt to impose order, I found them. At the very bottom of the box marked "Miscellaneous," wrapped in brittle, yellowing newspaper, was a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. Robert's handwriting on the top envelope stopped my heart. My hands shook so violently I could barely untie the knot. The paper smelled of his old oak desk, of him. I unfolded the first letter. "My dearest Lori, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. I have dreaded this day since the moment I met you. There are things I never said, secrets I kept to shield you from worry, but now you must know everything." Tears blurred the familiar, elegant script. His voice, so clear in my mind, seemed to speak from the page. He wrote of his youth, before we met, of working in real estate and using his savings to make risky investments, purchasing parcels of land on the far outskirts of Seattle. They were dirt cheap, my love. No one wanted them. I thought, perhaps one day, but then life with you became my everything, and I forgot about them. I never told you. I didn't want you to worry over a phantom fortune. The paperwork, he wrote, was in a safe deposit box at First Puget Bank. The key was taped behind our wedding photo, the large framed one that had sat on our dresser for decades. Lori, if anything happens to me, those plots may be worth something now. The city grows every day. And my darling, if you are reading this, it also means you are in need. Remember, you are the strongest person I have ever known. Stronger than you think. If anyone has ever made you feel small, know that you have the resources and the spine to stand tall. All my love, forever. Your Robert. I sat on the floor of that wretched motel room, the letters spread around me like sacred artifacts. For the first time in months, a feeling other than despair flickered in my chest. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was a faint, distant sense of connection. He had seen me, the real me. And he had, in his quiet, steadfast way, tried to build a lifeboat for me long before he ever saw the storm coming. With trembling hands, I pulled our wedding photo from the box. It was heavy, the frame ornate silver we'd chosen together. I turned it over. The backing was old cardboard. My fingers traced the edges, finding a slight, deliberate bump. Peeling back the aged brown tape, I felt it, a small, cold metal key. It fell into my palm, gleaming dully in the motel's fluorescent light. The game, as Robert would have said, had changed. The next morning I wore the cleanest, least wrinkled dress I had. I walked into the First Puget Bank feeling like an imposter, my heart hammering against my ribs. The young teller took the key, checked my ID with a curious glance, and led me to the vault. The safe deposit box, long and slender, slid out with a heavy sigh. Inside were deeds, maps yellowed with age, surveyor sketches, and a sealed, thick envelope. On it, in Robert's hand, for my warrior when she discovers who she really is. I opened it. There was a formal property appraisal, dated just 6 months before he died. My eyes skipped over the legal descriptions, the lot numbers, and found the bottom line. Total estimated value, $2,400,000. The room swam. I gripped the edge of the table. $2.4 million. The number was abstract, meaningless in its enormity. All I could think was, I ate stale bread while this sat in a box. I cried myself to sleep in a bug-infested room while I was a millionaire. The irony was so profound it was almost funny. But more than the money, it was the message. My warrior. He had believed in a version of me I had forgotten. He had given me not just money, but agency. The power to choose. That afternoon, in my motel room, I began to plan. Not with the frantic desperation of the hunted, but with the cold, clear focus of a general. Ryan and Brooke had been brutal, but they had also been clumsy, driven by transparent greed. I would be meticulous. I would be silent. And I would win back not just my life, but my very self. My first call was to a lawyer, James Alonzo, highly recommended for his discretion and real estate expertise. I met him in his office, a woman in a faded dress, but I spoke with a clarity that made him sit up and listen. I need to sell assets without anyone tracing them to me. I need a corporate shield. A shell company, he nodded. We can set that up. I want it named something, hopeful but anonymous. Future Harbor LLC. Through Future Harbor, I sold 4 of the 12 parcels. The money that hit the account, $600,000, was a number that still didn't feel real. But I used it. First, I moved to a clean, quiet hotel in the city center. Then, I began the external transformation. It wasn't vanity. It was armor. I went to a good salon and let them cut away the lifeless gray, shaping my hair into a soft, modern style. I bought a few simple, well-made pieces of clothing, trousers that fit, a cashmere sweater, good leather flats. I looked in the mirror and saw, not the glamorous society woman Brooke pretended to be, but a competent, composed one. A woman who belonged in boardrooms, not begging at the back door. With James's help, I hired a discreet private investigator. I needed to know everything about Ryan and Brooke's situation. The report was a satisfying, if grim, read. Ryan had taken a massive mortgage on my house. He was behind on payments. His salary was stretched thin, covering the mortgage, utilities, and Brooke's pregnancy expenses. Brooke had quit her job. They were a shiny facade over a foundation of debt. The investigator included snippets from neighbors, loud arguments about money, Brooke crying on the front porch. They were drowning, and they had thrown away their life raft when they threw me out. I didn't act immediately. Revenge, I was learning, was a dish that grew more potent with patience. I watched. I learned their routines. I saw Brooke, heavily pregnant now, coming out of discount stores, her face pinched with stress. I saw Ryan coming home late, his shoulders slumped. The arrogant couple who had evicted me were gone, replaced by 2 scared kids in over their heads. It was time to acquire my stage. I found it in the Summit Tower penthouse. When I walked in for the first time, the wall of windows facing the city took my breath away. It was the antithesis of everything I had lost and everything they had tried to reduce me to. I bought it, through Future Harbor, with a large cash down payment. The closing was swift, silent. As the interior designers transformed the space into a sanctuary of quiet luxury, cream tones, elegant furniture, stunning art, I made my next move. Through Future Harbor, I bought the delinquent mortgage on my old house. With a few signatures, I became their anonymous creditor. The bank's threatening letters now originated, indirectly, from me. I instructed a collections firm to begin proceedings. Firm, legal, relentless. Let them feel the pressure. Let them lie awake at night as I had. The final piece was the reveal. I wanted them to come to me. I hired an actor to play an old friend of Robert's, to casually bump into Ryan and mention, "Heard your mom's landed in a penthouse at Summit Tower." Good for her. The seed of bewildered curiosity was planted. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Of course it did. I was on my balcony, drinking coffee, when my phone lit up with Ryan's name. I let it ring 4 times, my hands steady. "Hello, Mom. It's me, Ryan." His voice was small, stripped of all its former bravado. "Ryan, how did you get this number?" I infused my voice with polite confusion. "It wasn't easy. Mom, we need to talk." "Oh? Now you need to talk." I let the silence stretch. "A few months ago, I was a burden. You wanted nothing to do with me." He stammered, making excuses about stress, about the baby. Finally, it came out. We heard you have a penthouse." There it was. Not, "We miss you." Not, "We're sorry." We heard you have a penthouse. I agreed to a meeting with conditions. They would come to me. They would tell the truth. The day they arrived, I was ready. I wore a simple beige dress that whispered of quality. My home was a portrait of understated wealth and calm control. I stood with my back to the door, looking out at my city, wanting that view to be the first thing that gutted them. I heard the elevator, the hesitant steps on marble. The doorbell chimed. "Come in." It's unlocked. I turned slowly. The sight was everything I had worked for, and yet it gave me no pleasure. Ryan looked years older, unshaven, shadows under his eyes. Brooke, huge with pregnancy, was pale in a cheap maternity dress, her feet swollen in worn shoes. Their faces were masks of utter, stupefied shock. Their eyes darted from the art to the view to me, unable to reconcile the woman before them with the one they had cast out. "Hello, Ryan." "Hello, Brooke," I said, my voice calm, a placid lake. "Welcome to my home." The meeting that followed was a careful, brutal unraveling. I made them voice their cruelty back to me. I dissected their excuses. I laid bare their miscalculation. And then I revealed the source. Their father, the man Brooke had dared to slander, had provided for me in a way they could never have imagined. He left a fortune, Ryan. One you could have shared in, if you had been people who deserved an inheritance. Brooke wept then, messy, ugly tears of realization. "We didn't know." "That's the point," I said softly. "You didn't need to know. You just needed to be kind." I laid out their desperation for them, itemizing their failures, the lost job, the sold car, the looming foreclosure. I made them sit in the vulnerability they had forced on me. Only then did I offer them a way out, but it was a path of my design, paved with humility and accountability. Their public apologies to the neighbors were the first installment. The handwritten letters they brought to our second meeting were the second. Ryan's was a raw admission of shame, Brooke's a shaky understanding of the fear she had inflicted. And then I presented my terms. Not out of softness, but from a position of absolute power. The mortgage would be cleared, but the house would be held in trust for my grandchild. Ryan would have a job, a good one, but with my silent oversight, one slip and he was finished in this city. Brooke would have proper health care. I would be part of my grandchild's life, not as a supplicant, but as a right. And we would have monthly dinners, not for pretend family bliss, but for audit and communication. They were non-negotiable. A new foundation, built on the rubble of the old, with boundaries as load-bearing walls. They signed. The relief on their faces was profound, but it was tempered by a new, wary respect. They looked at me, truly saw me, perhaps for the first time. After they left that final evening, the silence in the penthouse returned. But it was different. The hollow echo was gone. In its place was a quiet certainty. I had not gotten my old family back. That family was a phantom, a story I'd told myself that was less true than I'd believed. But I had gotten something else, myself. A self that was strong, capable, and no longer afraid. Months later, in a clean, bright delivery room, I held my grandson for the first time. He was red and squalling, a perfect, innocent bundle of new life. As his tiny fingers curled around mine, all the intricate plans, the quiet revenge, the calculated power plays, melted away. This was not about the past. This was about the future. My tears then were not of bitterness, but of a hard-won, cautious grace. Brooke, exhausted and vulnerable, looked at me from the hospital bed. "Thank you for being here, Lori." It wasn't Mom. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was my name, spoken with respect. Where else would I be? I said, and for the first time, I meant it without any hidden blade, any unspoken debt. I was there because I chose to be. Not out of obligation, not out of a desperate need to belong, but from a place of chosen connection. The journey isn't over. Forgiveness is not a line you cross, but a country you travel through, with rocky passes and occasional clearings. Some days, the old anger flashes, hot and bright, when I see a certain look on Ryan's face or a remembered slight floats to the surface. But then I look at my grandson, or I walk into my peaceful apartment, or I simply sit with the knowledge that I am secure in my own life, and the anger cools into something manageable, a reminder, not a ruler. I set boundaries first, to protect the heart they had shattered. Then, slowly, I chose compassion, not for their sake, but for mine and for the innocent life now in our midst. The balance is delicate, daily work. Love in a wounded family isn't a blanket that covers everything. It's a careful stitch, repairing one tear at a time, knowing the fabric will never be the same, but it can be whole again in a new way. Tonight, as I turn off the lights and the city glitters like a scattered jewel box below me, I feel not triumph, but a profound and quiet peace. The woman who was betrayed is still here. But she is no longer a victim. She is a creator. She built a harbor from the wreckage, and now she is learning, tentatively, how to let other ships dock there again, on her terms, in her own time. The story isn't about revenge. It's about becoming, irrevocably and completely, your own safe place. And from that solid ground, you can finally begin to build something real.